Welcome to the Virginia is for Laughers podcast, brought to you by X2 Comedy. If you're looking to get more out of your Shenandoah Valley experience, then this is the podcast for you. You'll meet interesting people, musicians, and comedians that perform here and find out more about what you can do and see. Whether you live here or plan to visit, listen to explore what makes our unique slice of heaven. Now here's your host, Don Davis Womack.
Hello, Laughers. I'm super pumped to introduce you and bring back to the show a hilarious comedian, Joel Byars. He's an award-winning comedian, podcaster, and trophy husband. His unique, clean comedy style has helped him win both the Kenan Thompson Comedy Contest and Search for the One competition. Both of these events seek out the top clean comedians in the country. Beyond the stage, Joel has been a writer for Comedy Central, the Weather Channel, and even authored his own book, Finding Your Funny. His award-winning podcast, Hot Breath, features over 400 interviews with comedians like Jeff Foxworthy, Cedric the Entertainer, Nate Bargatze, Mark Norman, and many more, all about the craft of comedy. It has been described by NPR as discovering the desire to be a comedian, their craft, and their unifying bond found within the world of stand-up comedy. Everyone of all ages is guaranteed to laugh and learn at a Joel Byars show. Welcome to our show, Joel. It's great to have you on today.
Yay! Thanks for having me again, Dawn.
Oh, this is so exciting. It's been a minute since you've been here. The last time you were on the show, you were with Winston Hodges before we did the show at Cross Keys Vineyards, which was an amazing show. And now you're coming back to Virginia for our first X2 comedy show at Sipe Center in Bridgewater, Virginia.
How exciting.
I know. I'm so excited. So I thought it would be great to have you back on the Virginia is for Laughers podcast to chat about comedy, see what you've been up to since the last time we spoke. So here we are.
Yeah. You're doing it. You just passed 100 episodes. You're killing it, Dawn. I'm so excited to be a part of what you're doing here.
I know. And you actually have a lot to do with that because I reached out to you and did a consult with you about starting this podcast. And I am a recovering overthinker who was overthinking it. And you actually prompted me and pushed me along. Like, all right, let's pull out a calendar. When's this first podcast episode coming out? And here we are. So thank you for your influence.
Of course. Happy to help.
Yes, this is great. So what are you looking forward to the most about coming back to the Shenandoah Valley with your hot Atlanta, Georgia self?
I mean, honestly, the last time we did a show together up there, I mean, just the audiences were so much fun. Like, people were just there to just let go and laugh and have just a good time. And you put on a good show. You've been doing it for so long now. You understand how to put together a good professional show with quality comedians. So honestly, you know, being in this comedy game, shows can sometimes be hit or miss or good or bad. But I know your shows are always going to be good. So I'm just excited to be working with you again and get back up there with all the Virginia laughers.
Yes, we have such amazing laughers. The community keeps growing. It's incredible, even globally. It's I didn't even know some of these places existed, but I'm thankful for them and thankful that they're listening. I was excited to learn about some of the new things that you've been up to that I didn't realize that you had done since we had you last on the podcast. And I want to start with this first one. I saw your YouTube video about the power of comedy with Ethan Post and the National Cancer Foundation. It's a pediatric cancer foundation, actually, where you helped Ethan's comedy dreams come true by helping him perform live on stage. And I think at the time he did this, he was 9. You can correct me there. You even had a couple of amazing surprises for him. I was like, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I mean, I would love those surprises. That's just incredible. What a blessing. And I know this was all about comedy, but I have to admit, this mama's heart got all teared up. It was really misty in here. So awesome. Can you share the story of how this came to be and what your process was to help Ethan prepare to perform live on stage?
Yeah, and I cry basically every time I watch that video. I love that we were able to even do that. I mean, honestly, the National Pediatric Cancer Foundation emailed me out of the blue. They found me online and emailed me about helping make Ethan's comedy dreams come true. It was something he always wanted to try to do. So really, we actually met up. He actually came to an open mic and I got to like see him perform. And then we met up a few times and wrote jokes together and did a few Zoom kind of calls to work through his material and things like that. And it was really kind of a team effort. His parents were very involved as well and very helpful. And it all just kind of culminated with this showcase where he actually got to perform stand-up comedy, which was his dream forever. And the kid's funny. I mean, he's actually very funny. He did roast me a good bit, but he had cancer. So what am I going to do? So I just took it. But it was so rewarding. And one of those things with doing comedy for so long, one of those things you never expect to be a fun byproduct of being a comedian is you get to do these things and actually learn the impact that laughter and comedy can have beyond just like going on stage and telling jokes, but it's way more than that. And this was a good reminder of like what's possible with what we're doing.
Yeah, I noticed, just obviously the love that his parents shower on him is beautiful, but also just how impacted they were by Ethan being able to do this and achieve this. Was very heartwarming to see.
Yeah. Yeah. And we keep in touch. My wife and I went to his birthday party last year. I've been involved in the fundraisers the Pediatric Cancer Foundation does every year. The one they do in Atlanta, I've been involved with that every year since we started working together. So this is definitely like an ongoing relationship that it all just kind of started with comedy.
Yes, and we must talk about the couple of surprises that you had for him. I'm going to let you tell that story. So what did you do for Ethan that he didn't know about?
Well, he told me that his two favorite comedians were Jim Gaffigan and Brian Regan. So I just thought I would try to reach out to them and see if they would kind of record a video kind of giving him words of encouragement and inspiration on his new comedy journey. And I didn't tell anyone I did it. Like I didn't tell his parents or anything. So it was kind of a surprise for everyone that we got to capture live on film. And I think that's what I've learned in being in comedy so long and getting to talk to so many great comedians is like most comics enjoy helping each other and they love giving back to the next generation of comedians. So I just reached out to their teams, Jim Gaffigan and Brian Regan's like managers, and it was kind of a no-brainer. I mean, they both were like, of course, yeah. And then they sent videos, and I think they've kept in contact with Ethan since then. I know Ethan just went and saw Jim Gaffigan when he was here in Atlanta. So it all just kind of was me trying to be proactive and thinking of if I were Ethan, what would I want? Because it all kind of started as like, will you help put together a show for Ethan to do stand up? And I was like, oh, we could make this so much more and make it like a documentary and everything. So I just kind of looked at it from what would I want if I were Ethan? And I just tried to do as many of those things as possible. And it all just kind of worked out.
I love so many things in that, especially your servant heart. I love so many things in that. And I love the videos. You had that within that YouTube sort of mini documentary. It had that kind of style and feel to it, but you had the videos from Jim Gaffigan and Brian Regan within it. And I love how they both mentioned just have fun with it. When you do stand-up comedy, just have fun with it. Because the message was when you have fun, then audience is going to have fun. And that's so true. And I loved Jim Gaffigan's, talking about the anxiety that comes.
He was pretty honest with him. I was like, go easy on the kid, Jim. He just started.
Yeah, and then he followed it with a welcome to the ranks of chaos.
Yeah, Jim didn't sugarcoat anything, but I appreciated it.
Yeah, because that's the side people don't see. Sometimes you go up there and you make people laugh, and then you'll have times when you're building your career where you're literally sometimes looking in the mirror or just saying out loud in the car, maybe even shouting it, what am I doing with my life?
Yep. That happens. That happens. Yes.
But I think that's great that you were a part of something like that.
Oh, thank you. It was very rewarding to be a part of, for sure.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I got to take a minute to eat some popcorn.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, it looks delicious.
Yes. Did you know that is award-winning gourmet popcorn?
Mm.
From PrePOPsterous. That's PrePOPsterous popcorn in Bridgewater.
Sounds delicious.
I know. I'm going to send you some.
Please do. I love popcorn.
I know. Too bad you can't have any right now, so I'll eat yours for you right now, too.
Thank you so much.
They won the Made in Virginia award from the Virginia Living magazine, actually, for being one of the best craft goods in the Commonwealth of Virginia.
Wow.
Yeah. But the good news doesn't stop there, Joel. Laughers, you get a discount using promo code LAUGH15 when you visit their website today. That's PrePOPsterous.com. Excuse me, I've got more popcorn in between my teeth.
What flavor? What flavor is that?
This is caramel.
Love caramel.
Fresh from locally grown kernels and handcrafted to wow your taste buds, which mine are doing right now.
Wow.
You're going to love it when you get it, Joel.
Oh, I can't wait.
And you can get more at PrePOPsterous.com. That's PrePOPsterous. That's what's up. So let's talk about you more, Joel.
Let's do it.
I have another question for you.
Okay.
Since the last time you were on, you have won the Kenan Thompson Comedy Contest in New York City. That's very cool. What did you have to do to enter that contest?
He does this really cool thing where it's like a nationwide contest, and they go from city to city around the country and have like little mini contests. And then whoever wins those, all the finalists, they actually fly to New York and do like a live competition at Caroline's in Times Square, which Caroline's is a legendary comedy club. It's been open like over 30 years in Times Square. And he just does that to really help comedians and give them a platform and really give them an opportunity to see comedy at the next level. So it all started with me competing here in Atlanta, doing well, winning that one, and then getting up to New York, where he also actually, all the finalists, we actually got to go to an SNL taping.
What?
As well. Yeah, we got to go watch SNL live. And then after the show, he took us backstage. What? And we got to see like it was really cool. Because he calls it like the Kenan Thompson like comedy experience. And the whole thing is like an experience from beginning to end. It was so cool.
Oh my gosh. How many minutes did you have to do in the competition?
I think it was 7 to 10, I believe. I think it was something like that. Yeah.
Okay. And how is that? You see, I've learned as you get better and do this more, you have more minutes of material. And then when somebody says, you get to a point where somebody says, yeah, we just need 7 to 10 minutes out of you. And you're like, which 7 to 10 minutes am I going to pick? Yeah. So how was that process? How did you decide which 7 to 10 minutes you were going to pick for the contest?
I just did the greatest hits. I mean, I was swinging for the fences. Like I wasn't playing around. I wasn't like, ooh, maybe I'll do this or that. I was like, what is my best stuff? And I'm just going to do that. And also keeping in mind who the audience is. I'm a clean comedian, but just thinking of it's a clean competition. So kind of thinking of who the audience is and what will be the best material for that specific audience, and kind of thought of it that way as well. And the same thing what I did with like the Dry Bar special is like, well, what is this audience? What is the material they really enjoy? And I'll do that material. So I think that's something sometimes comedians will overlook when they're doing shows, is to think about who's in the audience, and maybe they can adjust their not their jokes, but like the order of their jokes or what they're going to say, just in order to be like, oh, well, they'll be more receptive to this kind of material than maybe something a little more absurd or whatnot.
I didn't realize it was a clean comedy contest.
I think it was.
Okay.
Maybe it wasn't. I don't know. Maybe my brain was just, maybe it was just a contest. Now that I think about it.
All right.
I don't recall. But I know there were kids there too. He had like two kind of competitions. It was like a kids competition and then like an adult competition. So it was like a kids one they did, and then they did the adult one. So maybe it was just the kids one that was clean. Yeah, I don't know, actually, now that I think about it.
Okay. It sounds like an incredible experience. Did you win any money or anything?
No, basically, well, we got a stipend when we went up there. So we won that. And we won a free trip to New York. He put us up in like a nice hotel in Times Square. We got a stipend for all of our food and everything. We got to perform at Caroline's and get a video of it. We got to meet Keenan and now have that relationship with him and his team for the rest of my career. So, as you know, as I say, comedy's a dream job if you hate money. And so, this was one of those for the love of the game, for that clout, but all worth it, even just to get the experience to go up a paid trip to New York alone, to get to go to SNL and all of that was well worth it.
Was it in the summertime or wintertime?
I think it was the summertime. I mean, it was like perfect. Good. Yeah, it was like
nice weather and all of it.
The whole trip was perfect. Yeah.
And you got to meet the other comedians on the contest too, no doubt, and then have networked with them.
Yeah, and I've kept in touch with several of them, actually. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. And were they from all over the country?
Yeah, all over. Yeah.
Oh, that's exciting. Yeah, Caroline's would be great one day. Put that one on my bucket list. I'd love that.
Yeah, it's very fun.
It is fun. You've been busy filming since we last spoke, because you also filmed a dry bar comedy special. And yes, and you have said there was a huge lesson you wish you would have known sooner, and you even did a podcast episode about it. So I hadn't really listened to that one yet.
Yeah.
I'm excited to listen to it, but I'm curious, what was the lesson?
Well, there was actually two lessons I learned. The first one is to not go hiking the day of your taping because you get sunburnt. Unbelievable. My face was so red.
Was it really?
Oh my gosh. But like, no, they were able to put makeup on it and everything. Okay. But like, I'd worked I wasn't eating sugar. I was drinking a lot of water. I was like, my skin's going to be fresh to death for this taping. And then the day of, I go on like a nice hike to really, soak in the sun and get energized and centered. And then I got sunburned and I was like, no. But they covered it up with makeup and everything. Okay. But the other thing I learned is, and this is something you mentioned earlier, is to remember to have fun. They do 2 tapings. You do 2 tapings for Dry Bar. And the first one, I was like super rigid, and I wasn't very loose, and I kind of like overthought it, and I didn't really like have fun with it. And it went fine. We're going to be our worst critics as comedians. The show went great, but in my head, it didn't feel great. So the second one, I talked to one of the comedians in between and asked him for advice. And it was really just like loosening up and just like having fun and doing I know this material, just do it as if the cameras weren't here. Cause I was trying to think about, okay, for this punchline, I want to be looking at that camera, and I want to be I overthought the entire performance of it, instead of just doing what I've been doing for 13 years, which is stand-up comedy. So having fun was definitely the big thing that I had to learn kind of the hard way through doing that first set. But the second, both went well. The second one I had a lot of fun with, and they put it together nicely, and now we're just waiting on it to come out.
Okay. Yeah, I think you touched on something really powerful there with the overthinking in the performance and how important it is to relax and have fun with it. People, I think, even if they don't consciously feel it, they'll even subconsciously feel it. you know? So the more fun that you're having, the more fun they're going to be having.
Yep.
And I get you, that overthinking. We are our own worst critic. And I think everybody, whether they're doing a comedy or not, can identify with that. They can identify with overthinking whatever it is that they're trying to achieve or perform. And when you relax and just go with the flow, then your best rises to the top.
Yeah, that's usually when we're focused on the outcome.
Yeah.
Instead of like the experience. We're like, well, what am I going to get out of this? Or what am I going to do to get X, Y, and Z, as opposed to just making the most of that moment, of that time, and having fun. Because that's all you really have, you know. But for me, I was like, this is dry bar. I got to do the blah, 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 blah.
I get it, though.
Yeah. We all do it.
Yeah.
And beyond comedy, you know, we all do that as just people. But the more mindful of that we can be, the more we can do to change it, you know.
I agree with that 100%. Yes. And you have done a special before all of this. It's like the very first special you did, you independently produced. It's called The Trophy Husband. And you've been doing comedy now 11 plus years. But this was a little bit earlier in your career. So when did you do The Trophy Husband? What year in comedy were you?
So I did The Trophy Husband 10 years into comedy.
Okay.
So I've been doing it. I mean, it's tough with the pandemic. It's almost like 2 years. It's tough I've been doing it technically 13 years. But it's like with the pandemic, it's almost like we lost 2 years.
Yes.
But yeah, technically 13 years. And I did that and released the special on my 10-year comedy anniversary. With the hopes, you know, self-produce it. And then I had a whole tour booked. My anniversary was February 1st, 2020. So, you know, right after that, COVID happened. So that was really good timing to plan a tour off my comedy special. Worked out really well. Yeah. It went great. Just like I had planned.
Who knew that was coming?
Oh yeah, no one. Yeah, there's no way to. Yeah. But I'm very happy with it and proud of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you decide to make a tour later as we started emerging out of the pandemic from the special, or just decided?
Yeah, it was kind of like in the moment. I have this comedy special, The Trophy Husband. I'm going to go on this tour called The Trophy Husband Tour and tie it all together. I mean, I still could, but, you know, I mean, I think the pandemic made us rethink everything we're doing. So I kind of just got away from that idea and just kept moving, you know.
That makes sense.
But we on tour, you know, no, we working now. We working now.
You're coming to the Shenandoah Valley now.
All right. I don't want my wife to hear this and be like, say, what?
You know, you've been working really hard. What prompted you to do the special specifically in your 10th year versus earlier? Like, what do you know, aside the pandemic we didn't see coming, what was your thought process to do it then?
I think I was just like, I just wanted a time capsule of my first 10 years in comedy. And I think it took me 10 years to really develop an act that I was like proud enough to like share and sell to people. So I think it just kind of took 10 years of developing as a comedian to feel like, this is something that I can be proud of, that even in 20 years, I can look back on this act that I did and still be proud of it. You know, I think a lot of times, especially, I mean, with the internet now, comics are posting everything they do. And, you know, they may look back on it in a few years and be like, oh, why would I even say that? Or that's not even funny. Or what was I even thinking type deal. So I just kind of waited until I felt the timing was right. And I thought 10 years was kind of a good milestone in my career, that this is now a time capsule of like me leading up to that point as a comedian. So I also sell it on my website. I didn't post it on YouTube like most comedians are doing, because I also do self-producing my comedy special. I just wanted to experiment with what would happen if I just sold it like it was merch, and I could like sell it at like my shows, and just people could get it online when they discover me on podcasts like this one. And my whole goal was just to make back my money. And I've been able to do that and then some. So it was a big success for me. And I'm super grateful for the opportunity. It all just kind of came together with a fan of my podcast, helped to like direct it and like film it. I wore my suit from my wedding in the comedy special. My dog was on the front row. So there was like a lot of meaningful moments in the special that I can look back on. I forgot my jokes at one point, all the things that you want to see in a comedy special. I left in. So it was a really good experience, and really just kind of a milestone in my career I wanted to document, and hopefully showed other people you don't have to wait on anyone. You can kind of create your own opportunities.
Yeah, that's very inspirational. Those little sentimental moments you put into the comedy special, those are called, maybe I'm wrong, those are called like Easter eggs, right?
Easter eggs, yeah.
Yeah, okay, good.
Yeah. And I documented
still in touch,
the whole
Laughers.
thing.
Yeah.
I have so much footage that I intended to make it a documentary that I just didn't get around to. I had so much free time during the pandemic that I was like, I'm not going to do that. But I have a lot of behind the scenes footage of me getting ready for the special, leading up to the special, that I would definitely like to do something with one day, for sure.
Yeah. Did you have an outside camera company take care of it, or?
Yeah. So it kind of happened that I was talking on my podcast about wanting to do an album. And then a fan of the podcast reached out to me and was like, I have a production company. We could just make this a comedy special and we could film it. So yeah, he helped to film it. My best friend from high school, who's in the film industry, flew in from LA to help film it as well. So it was really just kind of it takes a village kind of thing, where I said I want to do an album, and then a fan was like, well, let's make it a special, and he helped film it, and we edited it together, and it all just kind of came together. It was really kind of serendipitous.
You have had a really great career so far, and I think you're just getting started, quite frankly. So it's exciting. Yeah, welcome. It's exciting to watch it. You started out really in open mics, though. That's kind of how you built your career, or is that correct? Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Oh, the worst open mics, strip clubs and public buses and sidewalks. I mean, the worst. I mean, literally, like I performed anywhere and everywhere. I was on stage every single night. Honestly, leading up until the pandemic, like I lived on stage, like, or on the road. Like I was always on stage, anywhere I could get up at any time. That was just all I did and all I knew. Yeah.
Would that be your advice to newer comics that are coming out or wanting to pursue comedy?
I mean, yes. I mean, I've interviewed so many comedians on my podcast, and the number one advice has been you have to get on stage. Like that's what everyone has said. That's been like the number one advice. You have to get on stage, because that's really where you learn comedy. Like you can learn the fundamentals in a class or from a book, but if you don't apply them, then it's not gonna stick, So you really do have to get on stage a lot. But in hindsight, and the pandemic really forced me to step back, think about, well, what am I like? Am I about that life? Do I want to do that? Like, it's not, you're never home. They're not always great shows. They're not always paying a lot, as we talked about earlier. So it really is kind of, I would say, kind of choose your own adventure when it comes to comedy. The more you get on stage, the better and faster you're going to get at comedy, but to whatever mental strain you want that to be as well. If what you can do is once a week, then by all means have fun with it and do it once a week. But the reality of developing as a comedian is, you've really got to be on stage every night. That's why even the professionals out in LA and New York who have had Netflix specials and whatnot, they're still out doing shows during the week, out at like mics and stuff. So it's just a part of the hustle. It's kind of part of what we signed up for, if you want to do it at that level. But it's kind of like, what do you want to get out of comedy? And you can kind of choose your own adventure through that. So there's no way around the work. You've got to get on stage, but how much you get on stage is really kind of up to you and what you want to get out of this comedy game.
Mm-hmm. And lots of times I think where you're geographically located can really impact you. That's why X2 Comedy now has a presence, because we're in the beautiful Shenandoah Valley, but the comedy scenes that are more established in our state are in Richmond, Virginia Beach, the DC area, somewhat in Roanoke too, for sure. So we're kind of at least 2 hours from any of those places, in some instances 4. So Virginia Beach, for instance, is 4 hours from here. And we're kind of doing a choose your own adventure because of that. The Shenandoah Valley. So I think that's a good point that you make. I also wanted to talk to you, brought to mind some feedback I recently got. Now I'm, technically 6 years in, with 2 of those being a pandemic for my comedy career. And I was just in a taping for the Comic Genius show. It's a new show that they're taping in Baltimore. And they loved the just natural riffing that I was doing off stage, and the stand-up I did for them that the judges, scored from 0 to 5. They all gave me 4s across the board because they loved the original material. And they said that the more that I did the natural riffing off stage with the original material, that I'd be killing the game. But it's about that's because that's your natural comedic voice. And so you want to marry that in with your original material. And I was just wondering what your thoughts, being ahead of me, basically 13 years in, what do you think about that?
That's what we're all trying to do. And it's easier said than done, of how you were funny off stage. Just go to do that on stage. Yeah. It's that easy. Oh, comedy solved. That's what we're all trying to do, is figure out how we're funny off stage and how we can translate that on stage. And that's why stage time is so important, because the more you get on stage, the more comfortable you get on stage, the more natural you get on stage, and the more that bridge starts to connect between who you are off stage as funny and who you are on stage. So that's good advice in practice, of just do that. But it takes years and years and years to get the confidence on stage to actually become that natural, just organic person that you're off stage on stage. It takes time and repetition to get there, but you're ahead of the game in that you're doing personal material, and you're doing stuff that's true to you and unique to you. So that's going to help you get there faster, because you're talking from a more natural source of material. But it's still, it still takes a long time. It's something I'm still working on. I think in the interviews I've done, people say around 10 years is when you kind of start to figure out how you want to be on stage. And then from there, it's figuring out what you want to say. So I can say that I'm starting, as I'm getting on stage more and more again after the pandemic, that I'm starting to feel that rhythm and that mode. But I'm still trying to figure out what my voice is. And I've interviewed people 20 years in who say they're trying to figure out their voice. So it all kind of happens on stage, though. That's
encouraging to hear that from people ahead of you. That's the comedic voice they were talking about. And they said the same thing. It's repetition. It's getting up on stage. And then it just kind of starts merging and blending together into something really beautiful.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I was encouraged by that as well, the feedback. But I also was curious about your thoughts on that too. You've done, you've done a lot of different things I find fascinating. I think it's super interesting that you have written for the Weather Channel. What in the world, Joe Byars? I didn't even know.
It's so well. The Weather Channel's based here in Atlanta, and Byron Allen, former comedian, now media mogul, actually bought the Weather Channel, and they were experimenting with some comedy content, and it was basically local comedians reacting to viral weather clips. It was called Weather Gone Viral. And if you're ever in a hotel at 1 a.m., then they may be playing it on Weather Channel. But basically what it was us reacting to viral like clips of weather, like crazy snow or rain or things like that. Just like funny ones, nothing like depressing, like most of the news. But all uplifting, good, clean fun. So
yes.
I actually was on the show, and then I helped write jokes for the show as well. So it was a really fun experience. And another thing of I was out doing shows, someone saw me and then asked me if I wanted to do this project, which did pay. I want you to say the Weather Channel paid. So,
and the wife was happy.
Very grateful for that. Yeah. And we did it actually leading up till until the pandemic hit, and we couldn't like film in person anymore. Wow. And they were even trying to figure out a way to where we could do it from home, maybe with a green screen, but I ended up just not just going through with it. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was a really cool experience.
Yeah, that's amazing. I didn't know comedians could write for the Weather Channel. So that is a great opportunity.
Yeah, it was really fun. You just never know. You just never know what you're going to do, who's going to see you at what time, and what opportunity you're going to get.
I think that's an extremely important point, especially for comedians. Wish I could remember where I heard this interview, but I heard an interview with Jay Leno, and he was just saying, take the job because you never know, you know. And he took a low paying job one time, and it just opened up this miraculous multiple doors of opportunity, because he didn't get hung up on that, and he just opened himself up. And I think I see that a lot with comedians that, you know, they are unwilling to try a new opportunity because they want X before they go there. But yet people maybe outside their region haven't heard of them, or locally haven't heard of them. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of factors. It's not like a clean yes, no answer, even in sharing that part of it. So there's a lot of factors to be considered. I'm just saying that I feel like some of us can limit ourselves from those kinds of things happening by saying no instead of saying yes.
For sure. And I even just this week had, and as we're talking about comedians posting online, I literally just had someone this week reach out to book me for a corporate event where I'm going to be doing like a joke writing workshop for this sales team. And it's because they saw me on YouTube and talking about joke writing and things like that. So me doing the podcast just turned into this like really nice like corporate gig just out of nowhere. So I say that to say like comedians posting all this stuff online, just remember that it's online and that anyone can see it at any time. And it's a direct reflection of who you are and what you're about. So whatever you post, make sure it's something you're proud of, that you will look back on and be proud of, because you never know who's watching at any time. I've had so many moments like that I was on stage at a gig that maybe wasn't great, but it led to something better, or I posted something online that I got an email of like, oh, I just heard this joke and it was really good. Thank you so much. I needed that laugh, and things like that. You just never know. Always put your best foot forward.
I think it's great advice. Great advice. You've also written a book, Finding Your Funny. What in the world is Finding Your Funny about?
It is basically my joke writing curriculum. Pre-pandemic, I used to do in-person classes here in Atlanta. And one of my students, who was a professor, he was like real excited about the class. And he's like, this is really good. He's like, I think we could make this a book. So he actually helped me to kind of like organize my curriculum in a way that is like a comedy writing workbook. And it has all these different exercises and places to like write and test out your joke writing within the book. And once I sold out of the books, I just created an online course to where people can get all that curriculum, but now it's online and they can kind of do it at their own pace and things like that. But it all kind of started with me doing in-person classes, all these joke writing techniques I've learned from my own experience, my own research, and just kind of distilled it into like an 8-week comedy writing course that I turned into a book. And now it's online for people to check out whenever they want.
Look at that. Joel Byars, everybody, getting it done.
Let's go. My wife is so proud.
I know. I was just
Come on,
like,
baby. Come on, baby.
he should be. I was looking at your website. I was like, look at him. It was already fantastic. But now you are definitely a hilarious comedian, but also an awesome comedypreneur, they would call us.
Comedypreneur.
That's what they call it. Yes.
I mean, we're our own. Nobody's going to do it for us. I'll tell you that. Been doing it this long. Nobody will do it for you. Nobody cares how hard it is. Nobody cares that you're trying to figure it out. It's like we're two businesses, basically. It's like show business, and they're two jobs. The show is a job, developing as a comedian, getting undeniably funny, being funny enough that people want to come pay to see you and then book you again. Like our show together went well, and you're like, all right, let's have him back for this new event at Sipe Center. First one, you want to make sure it goes well.
Yes.
So I'm honored that you even thought of me to do that. So show is one side, and then the business side, your branding, your marketing, your website, all of that stuff, the professional side. It's two different jobs. And sometimes people see a comedian and think, oh, they're just funny people that go on stage and tell jokes and then get drunk and party. But this is a full-time job for sure. So yeah, I treat it as such.
Yeah, you do a good job. Yeah, that's a whole nother side of the business. I think we get, especially when we're new at comedy, it's like, oh, we'll just go out a bunch of times. Somebody will see me. They'll pick me up. They'll pick me up in the limo, and I'll be...
I'm the chosen one, of course.
Yeah, and I'll be headlining at Caroline's. Look at me go.
Easy peasy. I'm the chosen one. Yep.
And no, it doesn't work like that at all. And I'm sure you've heard a ton of stories doing over 400 interviews on Hot Breath from these comics who have really done the work and have earned where they are. And I know you mentioned some wisdom that you have gleaned from them in all that time, but I'm wondering, if you think about it, what would you say are the biggest takeaways or wisdom nuggets that they have given you that has impacted your own journey in comedy?
So then the number one advice has been, get on stage. That's like basically always in the interviews with like, what's your best advice to young comics? And it usually boils down to that of like, you just got to get on stage as much as possible. But a few other things that I've learned from interviewing so many great comedians and also just being in comedy so long is, one, you have to focus on what you can control. That means not worrying about so-and-so that got on the flyer or whatever, like, why didn't this booker email me back or whatnot? It's like, oh, this booker didn't email me back. Okay, let me just start booking my own show. Like, it's like, what can control? You can control, all right, there's as much stage time, let me produce my own show and figure it out that way. Or let me get online and figure out how I can build a bigger online presence and teach myself that. Like, everything I've done has been learned by just doing. Like the podcast I started on borrowed equipment from a friend, and then he kind of taught me how to work audio and things like that. I learned audio editing, and then I added video to the podcast and learned video editing. And like, it's all just been learned by doing, essentially, and focusing on what I can control. So that's really been a big game changer for me, and why I self-produced my own comedy special was like, well, nobody else is giving it to me. Might as well do it myself type deal. And another one is also, I mean, it seems obvious, but it's like, be nice. It's like, be nice and be funny, like be easy to work with. Because a lot of your opportunities, the vast majority of your opportunities are going to come from other comedians. It's not necessarily going to be from like, you get the right manager or agent. It's literally like, your friend you've known since the open mic days who now is on the writing staff of this TV show and they're looking for other comedians. Or it's a listener of the podcast who sent me a message once thanking me for the show, and I like replied and got to know them, and then they like booked me on a show, or their company was doing a holiday party and they thought to hire me to go perform at the holiday party. Like, it's just being nice, and people will want to be nice back to you. And if people aren't nice to you, well, that's out of your control. You just be the best person you can be, and you'll get the best opportunities from that. So they all seem maybe like fundamental things, that apply to anything outside of comedy as well. But those really are like the big differentiators for people I've seen in comedy who are like excelling or just kind of just staying where they are at.
That's really great advice. I like that a lot. I'm also curious, why hot breath? Why is it called hot breath?
It was by accident. I mean, I was a big fan of NPR Fresh Air.
Okay.
I love that show. And even in my early episodes, you can hear me trying to do my best Terry Gross impression. And I was very slow and I paused and I had all my meticulous questions. So I loved NPR Fresh Air, and I loved like the 2 words. I love like the impact of like fresh air, just like 2 words. So I don't remember any other names I thought of. I think hot breath just kind of like stuck, and then I just kept going with it. And now it's everything. So it all just kind of started of what's a catchy name. And then now I get asked that question a good bit of like, why hot breath? It's like, is it going to happen? I don't know. A happy accident, as Bob Ross would say. Yes.
Happy accident. What was Fresh Air about on NPR? What do you?
Oh, it's like a super in-depth like interview show.
Okay.
And it's still on. It's very NPR though. It's like Terry Gross is like, and it's still on. She's been doing it, I think maybe since the 80s. But it's very like slow and it's very like methodical and meticulous. And she asks great questions. But I just learned from her interviews and how well prepared she was. And that's something I do in my podcast is I research people. Like I'm like a private investigator with these people. Like I want to say things to where they're like, how did you know that type deal? And now the interviews are more conversational that I do. But they're all still very well researched. I have a binder of all the show notes that I've done of like preparing for these interviews, like where I get the guests to sign them. So it's like it's all chronicled in alphabetical order. Like it's, I want to make it a book someday, but it's all just kind of, one bite at a time here.
You got them to sign. So you sent the questions ahead of time. Is that what you did?
Well, I did them in person. My interviews in person, you see, like I didn't do any Zoom until the pandemic. I refused to do a Zoom interview. I was like, I want it all to be in person so I can meet them. So I would do a bunch of research and then distill it all down onto one piece of paper that's like, and I would make like bullet points of what I want to talk about. And then, so I kind of have that. And the show evolved from like me going line by line, question by question in front of me to then, now I don't even use the sheet and I just kind of organically remember the questions as they roll around in my head to get to them when I do in conversation. And then after I'll be like, oh, well, will you sign these type deal? Yeah. But yeah, they don't know the questions ahead of time or anything like that. No.
Okay. All right. Very good. I'm thinking too, last time I wanted to ask this couple of last questions. Last time we talked about the future of comedy.
Mm-hmm.
And since then, I saw a recent post of yours about how there are now AI comedians. Yeah. I even saw a video with another comedian that had ChatGPT write a set for an open mic. And he brought the paper up of ChatGPT's jokes and he delivered them. And he was wondering how well that was going to go.
Yeah.
And they were a little bit corny, but he did them anyway. And the audience was kind of lukewarm about it. And I thought it was pretty interesting how he brought that page up there. I was like, that's interesting that he's reading off. But then he used that to transition and segue to his real set that went much better.
I'll have to see that because I thought about doing a video about that and just seeing if I could create material with ChatGPT that actually translates to an audience. Because anything I've done with it right now, they're all very silly. They're like knock jokes or like silly.
It
word
was like that.
Jokes.
Yes.
Yeah,
funny,
nothing
very
personal.
funny. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing personal.
But it's kind of crawling before you walk. It's kind of like, I think as the AI gets smarter and we get better at communicating with the AI, because the AI kind of, if you give it a bad question, it'll give you a bad response. Like right now, it's like learning how to prompt the AI to give you what you're wanting, but you kind of have to know how to ask it. I've been looking into it. It's like, it's not going anywhere. So I've really been looking into it a lot and kind of seeing how it can be used for good, of course, not to ruin us, but
right. There is that concern, Yeah.
And it's easy for me to be like, it could never replace a comedian because of the emotional connection or whatnot. Like, I don't know if a robot could go on stage and perform instead of a human, but if it could help us write jokes faster that are personal and are funny, I mean, there is something to that, because a lot of the workload of developing an hour is the writing and refining and the performing. So even if you do write jokes with AI, you still have to take them on stage to see if they work. At the end of the day, you don't know if anything is going to be funny until you do it on stage. So I don't think it can replace us, but it could become a useful tool. But hopefully it's all used for good. But it is a weird time to see that it's here.
I know.
The future is here. The future is now.
Future is now. None of us knows what's going to happen.
What? I know. We're like, we woke up and there's like AI and we're like, when? What happened?
What did happen? Is this like going to be a beautiful dream or a horrific nightmare?
I don't know. But it's kind of like, it's, you can get with it or get run over, I guess,
Yeah. Yeah. I'm interested to see how this is going to play out in the comedy world in terms of using AI.
Yeah, I don't know yet. It's all very new. So that's why I'm just trying to learn as much about it as possible now. Because it's only going to get better.
Yeah, it's going to get better.
And more useful. And like, so it's, I'm trying to keep up with these young kids now. Around that time, my wife is like, hey, TikTok here, Joel, let's figure out the career. So I'm like, all right, AI, maybe AI is the future. I don't know. We're all just trying to figure it out, really.
We are just trying to figure it out. It'll be interesting. I think it can do some very useful things too. I needed a technical writer, and my husband asked ChatGPT to do it, and it wasn't perfect. So there was some tweaking that needed to happen in it, but it did do it, and it did do a good job. So
yeah, I've tried to play around with it with writing scripts for my YouTube videos, and I haven't figured out it's like hasn't really done anything where I'm like, oh, perfect, I'll use that. It's all still kind of all over the place. But if it could help with things like that, I just scripted a Steve Martin video that took me like 16 hours to research and script. It was taking so long. I was like, I need to track the time of how long this is taking. So if AI could help me to not do that, and I could just film them and get them out quicker, that would be great. So I think the more we use it, the better we'll get with it. But I think it is a tool, and I don't think it's something to, flip your nose at, because I think it is something. People are comparing it to like a bicycle or something, of like people that I could just walk and get there. It'll just take me 2 days as opposed to like 20 minutes, so it can be a tool, but it is an interesting time. I can't believe it happened so fast. It literally came out of nowhere.
It really did.
Like, by the way, we have AI, and then like 3 other companies released AI. Yes. We're like, wait, what happened?
And there's a Bard or a Bart now. I don't know.
Yeah, was that the Google one, Bard? Is that the Bing one? I don't know. A few came out of nowhere. Yeah.
Yeah. And now it's like a literal race against the machine. So we'll see what happens when we have you back. Who knows?
Who knows by then? I'm crazy. We'll be holograms. We won't be in the same room, but we'll be sitting with each other. It's gonna be wild.
And how we record our podcast.
Yeah.
Oh, crazy. It's so crazy. Well, as we wrap up here, can you share with the listeners how they can follow you on social media or otherwise?
Yes, the podcast is called Hot Breath. It's available on your favorite podcast app, wherever you're listening to this right now. You can just go search Hot Breath and find it there. And it's also a YouTube channel where I do interviews and also weekly live streams answering young comic questions. And I have a personal YouTube channel where you can see my stand-up and more in-depth video essays I've been doing about my favorite comedians. So wherever you want to see me, you can search Hot Breath or Joel Byars. And if you want to book me, definitely joelbyerscomedy.com. Shoot your boy a message and we'll make something happen.
Yes, well, that's what I did. So,
yeah.
That's
get that comedy special while you're there too. My wife will thank you. My dog needs braces, so get
your
that
dog
comedy special.
Are you making that up? Do dogs get braces?
Do that dog braces money. No. That's funny. I should try that on stage.
I know that one worked really well.
Good, yeah. Interesting.
Note to self. Well, thank you so much, Joel. This has been a pure delight to hang out with you again today. Thanks once more for coming on the show today.
Of course. Thanks for having me, Dawn.
You bet. And Lappers, you can see Joel perform live on Saturday, March the 17th, as he headlines in our first X2 comedy show at Sipe Center Theater in Bridgewater, Virginia. Plus, you'll see 3 other local comedians on this show, including myself, my husband, the JMU Funny Professor, Chris Womack, and your host, Kyle Remnant. We can't wait. Buy your tickets today at x2comedy.com. We'll be sure to put that link in the show notes for you as well, along with all of Joel's information and the PrePOPsterous.com website, so you can use that code LAUGH15. And lastly, and most importantly, thanks for tuning in, Laughers. Out of all the podcasts out there, you picked us, and we think that's pretty darn special, just like you. Until next time, keep smiling. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Virginia is for Laughers podcast, brought to you by X2 Comedy. We'll be dropping a new podcast every Wednesday, so check back for another uplifting episode. Come to an X2 Comedy show or let us bring one to you. To find out more, head to x2comedy.com. Be sure to share this podcast with a friend, and until next time, cheers.